This video will demonstrate how to use the Desmos graphing calculator. So the first section, we're going to solve quadratics by factoring. If you look to the right, I have the steps for Desmos. You can pause the video at any time, take notes if you need to. And then to the left, you will see the actual work. So this is asking me to solve a quadratic by factoring. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to desmos.com. This is how you spell it, .com. And then you go to Math Tools, and we're specifically going to use the graphing calculator. And once that populates, I want to go ahead and type in my 16x. In order to get to the square, I can either choose the keyboard a squared, but make sure you're using x instead of putting another variable in there. Or I could use shift and the number 6, which is the caret symbol on my keyboard, and then I can put the exponent of my choice. So here it said to subtract 49 and set it equal to 0. When you're solving for quadratics, what you're looking for are the x-intercepts, which are found on your x-axis. Desmos makes it easy for you because it shows the little points and you just click on them and you look for where the y is going to be 0. So in your instructions, it may say roots, x-intercepts, solutions, or it may say, let's see, x-intercepts, roots, solutions, or zeros. Sorry, my mind went somewhere. All right, so now what I want to do is double check it with my answers. I had -7/4, but I noticed in Desmos, -1.75 is shown. So what I would do is I would type in -1.75. In front of it, I see a fraction icon. Click on that, and that tells me the equivalent fraction, -7/4. So if I look at my other 0, it says 1.75. I would simply do the same thing. Click on the fraction, and it tells me the equivalent, the fraction icon, and it tells me the equivalent roots or zeros. So I know that I have the correct answer for this problem. Moving on to example 2. I have another one where I'm trying to solve a quadratic by factoring. So I'm just simply going to go back, delete what I currently have, and type in 3x squared, and again, shift 6. And now I put 2 instead of using my keyboard. And it was -6x is equal to 0. I don't have to put the equal 0. I just do it because that's what the problem showed me. And now if I just click on my x-axis where the points are already there, it tells me my x values, because that's what we're looking for, are in fact 0 and 2. So that's all I really had to do there. I didn't have to do anything extra. For example 3, let's say I don't even know how to get started with factoring because I'm not sure how to find factors. If this is the problem that I am given, or the equation, I know to multiply A times C. So in this case, it's going to be -24. I have to find two factors that not only equal -24, but they add to equal +5. So my steps for Desmos are over to the right. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to delete what's currently there, and I'm going to type in -24 divided by x. When I do that, I want to look for this icon that looks like a wheel, and then I want to select my table. In my table, I'm looking for all of the factors that will multiply to give me -24. So what I want to do is continue adding numbers in here until I start repeating. So I already see I started with, at the very beginning, -2 and 12. So I'm just going to keep going till I get to 12. So I see that I've accounted for 12 and 2. I have to pay close attention to my signs because, again, I'm looking for a +5. So therefore, I could not select 3 or -8 because that will give me a -5. But if I chose +8 and -3, not only would that multiply to give me -24, but it would add to give me a +5, which is what I'm looking for. So that is how I would actually get started with factoring. Once I factor, now I have to set it equal to 0 to solve. What would I put in the place of x to make this expression true? Well, this equation, once I set it equal to 0. And then what would make this true? I said it would be -4 and 3/2. So let's go back and put in this actual equation to see. So we can go down to the next row, type in 2x squared plus 5x minus 12. So again, well, if this is too messy for me, I can actually get rid of that table. I don't need it anymore. And that, so that'll get rid of the actual, that black graph that was there. So now I'm only focused on this. I go to my x-axis, I see that -4, and I go over here and I see 1.5. So I have that same issue that I had earlier. I'm looking for a fraction. So I want to type in 1.5, click the fraction icon, and I see that it is equivalent to 3/2. So my zeros, roots, or solutions, whatever you want to call it, are -4 and 1.5, which is equivalent to 3/2. All right, so now if I'm solving the quadratic by square root, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just constantly typing in. I'm going to type in the blue portion. The rest is just me showing you my work. So I'm going to get out of here, type in 2 parentheses, the quantity of x minus 5 parentheses squared. I think it was -5. Let me make sure. Okay. Raised to the second power, all set equal to 200. Now, what you will notice is I am looking for 2 answers, and I know that because my highest exponent is 2, but I only see 1. So if that happens, you have access to zoom out or zoom in by using the plus or minus sign. So if I choose to zoom out, now I can see my other 0. So I see that my zeros are the x values, -5 and +15, which is what I said. And again, if you want to see the work, there you go. Solving quadratics by completing the square. All of these, I can use Desmos. I just use the purple steps over here. This is the actual work, but recognize when you're solving by completing the square, your leading coefficient has to be 1. So when you're showing your work, make sure you divide out everything possible. Now, what you will notice is I currently have 3 plus, I have a radical in my answer, basically. So let's go and see what happens when we go to Desmos. So I'm typing in 2x squared. I'm going to have to flip back and forth. Minus 12x minus 52 is equal to 10. Was it minus 52? Yes. All right. So now I want to click on my actual roots or x-intercepts. Again, I see that this time it's a negative. It's decimals. I'm not going to try to do this as a fraction because I already know my answer is not in fraction form. It looks like this. What I am going to do is take the answer that I am trying to verify and type that in to see if I get the same decimal. So I'm going to actually do subtraction first. 2, in order to get the radical, I go back to my keyboard and type in 10. I see that this equivalent fraction decimal is negative, yes. So I see that is the correct one, negative 3.325. So now I'm looking for the equivalent for 9.325, which would be, I can just copy this and just change that sign in the middle to plus, because remember, it's plus or minus. And now I see that, yes, I do have the exact same zeros as what showed up on Desmos for me. So that's the equivalent answer. All right, so now let's look at if I were trying to simplify a radical. It can be any index. I just chose the cube root. So if it's like the 4th root, then you're going to divide by x to the 4th. If it's the 5th root, x to the 5th, so on and so forth. So I want to find the cube root of 96 using Desmos. So I'm going to delete this. Type in 96 divided by x, and again, raised to the 3rd power. So here I can either use my keyboard, the Shift 6, or I can go down to where it says A to the B power on my keyboard, and then I can type any number in there. Once I type that in, I want to go to this wheel-looking icon, choose my table. In my table, again, what I want to do this time is I still want to add numbers. So if I add that and just keep hitting enter, I want to keep going until my second column has like 0 point something. Once I see that, I want to arrow back up to the first whole number. This is going to be my answer. So I have to keep up with my index. Since I divided by 3, that means I have a cube root. So this answer is going to be 2 times cube root of 12, which is what I have. So let's type that in just to see if that's true. So 2, in order to get to the cube root, I can press functions, scroll all the way down until I get to the index that's shown here. Well, the radical with the index. I can put any number I want. So I want the cube root of 12 because that's what I said that my answer should be. That's what I chose out of the table. Now I want to go back and make sure, is that really the equivalent to the cube root of 96? So again, I will go to functions, go back down, click that, choose the cube root of 96. If they are equivalent, which they are, I know that that is my simplified version. Now, I'm not sure how to use it, to use variables in Desmos, so I just showed you manually how I would do it. I've taught you before in class that you would just take the multiple that's closest to this exponent without going over and divide it by the index. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that's how many x's will come out, and then you are left with 1. 3 divided by 3 again is exactly 1. So that's what comes out, and you have nothing else left over. Or you can manually just count them, and then however many groups that you have, that's your exponent once you pull it out. If it's not in a group, that means it has to remain under the radical, but the radical has to keep its index. So make sure you keep up with that index. Okay. So for example 7, now what I want to do is I want to rewrite the radical. And I taught you in class that the top dog goes in the house. So whatever your numerator is in your fractional exponent, that's going to go in the house. The house is your radical. And then what's in your denominator will be your index. So let's see how this works. You're just, again, verifying that they match the decimals. So I would type in 125 raised to the 1/2 power, and that's the decimal equivalent. And now if I just wanted to rewrite this, I know that this is going to be the square root of 125. So I'm just going to press the radical button, and I see, yes, they are equivalent. So I know I did that correctly. And finally, if I just wanted to start off writing with a fraction, if I look in my keyboard, I don't necessarily see a fraction icon, so I wouldn't know what to do other than to hit divide. But if I press the back on my personal keyboard, if I press that \, it will automatically populate as a fraction. So if I were doing z-score or something, I personally would like to put everything in parentheses that has multiple terms, like either in the numerator or the denominator. So here I would type in 9.3 minus 8 in parentheses. Oops, but I want to make sure that I'm on top of that. So in parentheses, 9.3 minus 8. In my parentheses, go down, and I said to divide it by 2.5. What am I doing today? Okay, 2.5. And so it will automatically give me my answer, which is 0.52. Hopefully that was helpful. I tried to go fast so you guys wouldn't have to have a long video. So like, subscribe, have an awesome day.